Well, here we are. It is week number 5 of this National Football League season, and this is Jonesing for Football. Bill Jones in Dallas, young Cody Winstead in the Jonesing for Football studios in Philadelphia with his Emmy Award over his right shoulder, Patrick Mahomes over his left shoulder, and we are geared up for another weekend of football that got off to a rip-roaring overtime start on Thursday night as Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons somehow squeezed out a victory at home over Baker Mayfield, one of the leading MVP candidates in this league, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How you doing, young Cody?
Hi, Bill Jones. I'm not sure I agree with everything you said in that intro there, but how about our guy Kirk Cousins going over 500 yards passing? And guess who had him in his fantasy lineup?
Bill
That's
Belichick.
no, almost. That would be me, Jared Goff, luckily on bye for me, so I have to put my backup, Kirk Cousins, into the lineup. 500 yards later, I have a lead after the Thursday game. Let's go.
Well, I mentioned Bill Belichick because for those of you who might be just discovering us on the CBS Texas stream, Bill Belichick has a TV show that he does in the Philadelphia area. Young Cody Winstead here is the producer of that show, the podcast he does. I never can remember the name of it. Young Cody will fill us in. And of course, I am Bill Jones with CBS Texas. And happy to have all of you along for this ride. And by the way, you can catch us wherever you find your podcast as well. Young Cody makes sure that gets posted as soon as we do the podcast. Right, young Cody?
That is correct, Bill Jones. We are season 5 of Jonesing for Football. We are season 1 of Bill Belichick's new show and podcast called Coach. You can't remember it, but it's not that complicated. It's just called Coach. And so, yes, I'm producing it this season. And this week, Bill, the inside scoop is Bill Belichick said, and I quote, "Great job, Cody, twice in one day." And, wow, it's a season high for me right there.
Oh,
So I'm feeling good about myself.
I bet, and that overcomes the fact that you are doing that as a volunteer. You're not getting paid, and so that is your payment each week. Is Bill Belichick saying, "Good job, Cody."
Yes, I would do it for that. I am getting paid as well, but I would do it just for the praise from Coach Belichick. That would be
Well,
all.
I mean, that is Bill Belichick's thing. Just do your job, and you did a good job.
Yep, I know. I know. Trust me, I haven't been able to sleep since. I'm feeling great about myself, and I've never been a better producer. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great season. If you guys want to check it out, check out YouTube. Just search Coach and Bill Belichick. It's on all the socials. And we had a good show this week. We are previewing the London game, which I might also be previewing momentarily here. And so, yeah, it's a good show. Him and Matt Patricia, Michael Lombardi, breaking down the NFL. And I will say, I've been doing this for 20 years. They break down the NFL in ways that no one else is doing. They're not talking about all the same topics that everyone else is doing. They have a really cool and unique spin on how coaches and front offices are looking at the league.
You said that you're looking forward to a good season. Is it going to be a full season for Bill Belichick on that show? Is my question. Him doing a show in Philadelphia and the way the Eagles are going right now, could it be that young Cody will be working for the Philadelphia Eagles at some point this season when Bill Belichick sees what a good job he does every week and he brings him along to be his right-hand man as he takes over the Eagles, in a month or so?
Here's what I'll say, Bill Jones, and I purposely gave a long pause there. I don't think Nick Sirianni is getting fired before the season. Now, do I think Nick Sirianni gets fired after the season? Yeah, it's leaning towards yes, probably, but I don't think anything's going to happen in the next few months here.
Which brings us to the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy with his 2-2 record through September football. And of course, the Cowboys with the big Sunday night matchup in Pittsburgh. Mike McCarthy's hometown taking on the Steelers. And it's another one of those, it's not a must-win game, but when you look ahead at the Cowboys schedule, you better win this one because there's tougher foes ahead for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Bill Jones. We have a great episode coming up. We're going to break down the Cowboys and Steelers matchup. We're going to do a little must-watch game of the week. I already told you I'm talking Jets and Vikings, which I covered the Jets this week, Bill Jones. So I've got a little scoop on the Jets in there. We're going to do pressures on like we always do. And of course, your favorite game in mind, it's who you got. But I want to get into this Cowboys game because you're exactly right. If you look at the schedule, this is pretty much a must-win for the Cowboys. If they want to get to the playoffs, I just don't see a way that they have a winning record over the next month or so. So they need to win this game against a team that I think they're fairly evenly matched up with, the Pittsburgh Steelers. How do you see this game kind of breaking down when you look at it?
Well, the biggest breakdown is who's not going to play for the Cowboys in this game. And Micah Parsons has not practiced this week, and it appears he's going to be out this week with his ankle injury. DeMarcus Lawrence was placed on IR. He's got a Liz Frank issue with his foot, and so he's out at least a month, maybe 2 months. We'll see. And now look at and then Brandon Cooks is another guy who's out. He had a minor medical procedure that he had performed in New York over the weekend after their Thursday game last week. His knee had been bothering him, and then an infection developed a couple of days later, and so he's out this week. And so they need those young wide receivers to step up. But then I look at the Steelers and see who they have healthy and who are multiple-time Pro Bowlers on their defense, including T.J. Watt, who has led the league in sacks 3 of the last 4 years, 19 sacks last year. And you got Cam Hayward up front. You got Patrick Queen at linebacker. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick on the back end. And all of a sudden, it doesn't look like a good matchup for the Cowboys. Now, the Steelers their defense did not play well early on in that game last week against Indianapolis, especially, and they fell behind. And we got to see a little bit of Josh Fields and what he can do in bringing a team from behind, although he didn't complete the comeback. Justin Fields, I'm sorry. Yeah. And we saw what he could do bringing a team from behind. But he's still, by relative standards, a young quarterback in this league. He will benefit greatly from the fact that Micah isn't playing for the Cowboys. And so that's why I think it's a tough road to hoe for the Cowboys because of what the Steelers can do defensively. And I think the Steelers are going to be greatly motivated a Sunday night game with the Cowboys coming off a game where they did not play up to their standard defensively against Indianapolis.
Yeah. Couple things about this game that I'm looking forward to. Number one, as a TV producer, Sunday night football, Cowboys, Steelers. I mean, you can just produce the heck out of this type of thing. I mean, looking back over the years, the great rivalry of these two teams, they're obviously two of the biggest fan bases in the NFL. And so, man, you can have a lot of fun. It's going to be fun just to watch the producing around this game. But as far as what's on the field, you're right. The Cowboys really banged up. And I feel like we talk about this every single week, and we have, even going back to the summer, on the lack of depth with this team. And I've said from kind of the beginning, I think you agree, if you're looking at the starters on both sides of the ball, the Cowboys are as talented as any team in the league. And I think that's still true. The issue is if guys are out or guys are missing games, man, oh man, that depth really shows quickly that it's just not there compared to some of the better teams in the league. And so that's where we are right now. And I want to ask you, Bill Jones, because as a Cowboys fan, me, and obviously as a Cowboys fan, you, we've been tracking this for years. Are you kind of excited to see this Dallas defense with Micah Parsons. Micah, to his credit, has been a great player in the NFL. He's only missed one game during his career. It was a COVID game back in 21 as a rookie. But I'm kind of excited to see how this defense looks with Mike Zimmer and the structure without Micah. I'm interested to see. Are you?
Wait, you first said that you as a Cowboys fan in
Sure.
Philadelphia?
Well, yeah.
That,
I
that,
mean, I
that
still
makes it
consider
sound,
myself.
you know what I'm thinking is Eagles fans in Philadelphia have to be excited to see what this Cowboys defense looks like without Micah Parsons on the field. I don't think you can find any Cowboys fans here in Dallas who are excited to see what this Dallas defense looks like without Micah Parsons.
I am for this reason. I want to see Mike Zimmer's defensive structure without Micah. I want to see everybody does their job. There's no freelancing. There's no Micah to like make spectacular plays, which to be honest, he's not having the best year of his career anyway. But I want to see how Zimmer can scheme together something against an offense that is decent with the Steelers, but it's not like they're playing the most explosive offense in the league. I want to see how Zimmer coaches the defense this week.
I wouldn't say that I'm excited to see it, but to your point, that is one of the problems that the Cowboys have had going back even with a defense under Dan Quinn last year that led the league in takeaways for a couple of years and making all the big plays against a quarterback, especially like Justin Fields, who can run the ball. When you don't stay in your lane and do your job, Bill Belichick,
Yep.
and that's what the Mike Zimmer defense is predicated on too. Do your job, understand what your teammates' job is. I understand your point. I wouldn't say I'm excited to see it because I think talent puts you over the top, but there are frustrations I think that Cowboys fans have had with Micah being so intent on getting the sack and not necessarily doing his job in the team concept where a quarterback can get out the gate and go for a 25-yard run on you. And so it will be interesting to see how Zimmer does scheme it up and uses the talent that he has available. And it's, in a lot of ways, that's what they did against the Giants last week. They held the Giants to 26 yards on 24 carries, and they held them to 15 points in that game.
Exactly. I still think it's up in the air as far as how good is Mike Zimmer's defensive system. They're 27th in points allowed. They're 25th in yards allowed. Is that what's up with that? Is that the players kind of not following the defensive scheme, or is that just there are issues with the scheme and teams have been able to take advantage? So without Micah, I want to see if everyone can kind of do their job and play amongst the structure. And like I said, the Cowboys still have some pretty good players. Odigizue is there, Kendricks is there, Diggs is there. You know, they have guys that are Pro Bowlers or borderline Pro Bowlers on every level. I want to see how they look against Pittsburgh.
And by the way, Diggs left practice early on Thursday with an ankle issue. I
I'm
think I saw Will McClay after it. I do a segment with Will on for the Mike McCarthy show, and it was a hot day in 91 degrees, and with the big old 12-story buildings next to it, it's like your practice is like an iron skillet. And
yeah.
so 91 degrees feels like 101 degrees. And Zeke and Ryan Flanoy, wide receiver, they had to leave practice with muscle cramping. But then also Trayvon Diggs left practice with an ankle. And Will described it as he tweaked his ankle, but that's something to monitor as we go. They cannot afford to lose Trayvon Diggs at this point. They are getting Deron Bland back here probably in a couple of weeks, but they can't lose another cornerback.
Right. Yeah. I would say excited to see him without Micah, not excited to see him without Micah or Diggs because I think they actually have a shot to have a decent defense without Micah. We'll see. And it kind of gives guys, you know, a chance that we don't really know a ton about to actually kind of play well and be in a
I
star
mean,
role. But if you lose both guys, yeah, it's not going to end well. I think
having said that, if you look at the lack of playmakers that the Steelers have at the wideout position, they've got George Pickens and they've got Calvin Austin, but there's not a plethora of playmakers there. This was one game that you might be able to get by without one cornerback, but I don't think you can get by any NFL game without both your starting quarterbacks who you depend on to play at a Pro Bowl level.
I would agree, Bill Jones. Any other things we need to touch on regarding the Cowboys here?
Well, and it's a homecoming for Mike McCarthy. You know, he grew up in Pittsburgh, and he he's actually 1-4 all time against Mike Tomlin, but he got the big win, and that was the Super Bowl win in Dallas in Super Bowl 45. And I might add also that all 5 of those matchups with Mike Tomlin have been one-score games. They've all been high-scoring games. And to Mike McCarthy's defense, 3 of those 4 losses were started by backup quarterbacks for the Cowboys or the Packers. Cowboys last faced the Steelers in Arlington in the COVID season in 2000, and Garrett Gilbert started at quarterback, actually had a 19-9 lead on the Steelers in the fourth quarter before Big Ben brought them back. And then his 2 other games, Brett Hundley started one game, and Matt Flynn started another one when he was with the Packers.
I think you bring up a good point. This is going to be a close game. To me, like a lot of games feel like they're one-score games. To me, this feels like it's a field goal game. The spread is 2.5. Pittsburgh's favored by 2.5. I feel like this is going to end up with a field goal at the end. Whoever kicks the field goal, makes the field goal at the end is probably going to win.
So it's Brandon Aubrey, the NFC Special Teams Player of the Month for September, versus Chris Boswell, who happens to be from the Dallas area himself.
And he's having a good year kicking the football.
And
now, I will say, Aubrey at Heinz Field, formerly Heinz Field.
Yep.
There are some sort of wind circulation issues kicking the ball. There has been like a history since the stadium's been in place of weird types of wind and whatever affecting kickers. Wonder if it would affect Aubrey, who's proven to be the best kicker in the league right now.
Well, but and keep in mind, Aubrey's in a bad streak right now. He's missed 1 field goal in a row at the end of that Giants game the other day.
His first ever miss from 50+ yards. I know. I was on the field when he missed it. It was scary. Yeah.
It was shocking. Yeah.
It was shocking. All right. How about we do our must-watch game of the week? Bill Jones will expand league-wide here. When you look at the schedule, which game will you be looking forward to watching on Sunday?
Well, it's obvious. I mean, it's clearly the game of the week. It's on CBS at noon on Sunday. It's a rare noon marquee matchup of the week.
Yeah.
On CBS, it is the Stephon Diggs Bowl.
Yeah.
It's the Buffalo Bills 3-1 playing at the Houston Texans 3-1, and the Bills trying to get back on track. I refer to this not as the Stephon Diggs Bowl, but it's the Keon Coleman coming out party.
You say that every week, but I will say Keon seems to be becoming a slightly bigger part of the offense.
He actually had more snaps than any of the Bills receivers last week. He had 3 catches for 51 yards. And he mysteriously was not targeted much at all prior to that game, basically. And so I'm thinking that things are starting to come into shape for the rookie receiver out of Florida State, my favorite player in the draft. And so what better time to shine than against Stephon Diggs and the Houston Texans? Love the matchup of quarterbacks, of course, with Josh Allen against C.J. Stroud. Houston is another team that was lighting it up and then had against Minnesota, much like Buffalo going to Baltimore. Houston going to Minnesota and getting lit up by the Vikings a couple of weeks ago. And they're dealing with one of the keys to this game could be the injury situation at running back for the Texans. Joe Mixon has missed a couple of games. and he is not practiced this week. Maybe they're just giving him another week with his ankle. And then Khalil Shakir has not practiced for the Bills this week, and he has been a big playmaker for them early this season.
Yeah, you're considering this the Stephon Diggs Bowl or Keon Coleman Bowl. I'm considering this the biggest contender to the Chiefs in the AFC Bowl. Whoever wins this game, I think, will separate themselves as the number one contender.
Baltimore says hello.
Well, sure, but I think right
Biggest
now,
contender to the Chiefs. Did you not see what we did to the Bills last week?
yes, but I still think we'll see what happens to Baltimore this week. But I'm still saying I think the winner of this game should be considered the number 2 contender to the Chiefs in the AFC.
Okay, I will still say the Baltimore Ravens are the biggest contender to the Chiefs in the AFC. And by the way, the Ravens are the team that I picked to win the AFC this year. And I may have picked them to win the Super Bowl. I don't recall. I think I did, maybe.
I don't think you did. I'm not sure.
Well,
I don't.
maybe it
I'll
was
have
San
to look
Francisco.
back on that one. By the way, I like Baltimore. I'm going to talk about them here momentarily. But first, I want to give you my must-watch game of the week. A lot of good games this weekend, even though I think there's only one matchup pairing teams with winning records, which is the game you mentioned, Bills and Texans. There's
Which is
still
clearly the game of the week on
well, I
CBS.
still think there are some really intriguing games. Mine is bright and early on Sunday morning, Bill Jones. It's Jets, Vikings from London. That's 9:30 Eastern over there on the NFL Network, Mr. Jones. I talked a lot about the 4-0 Vikings last week, so I'm going to focus on New York today. I covered the Jets practice this week on Wednesday for ESPN. Didn't get any sense of like panic or worry, but I will say at 2-2, they have a lot going on there with the Jets. Let me run down the list of things that they were dealing with and questions that they were being asked on Wednesday. Number one, rumors of Davante Adams preferring to play for the Jets, and are they looking at adding the former Pro Bowl wide receiver, obviously his ties to Aaron Rodgers, and Robert Saleh said they're going to focus on the players they have on the roster. They were even asking some of the players about Davante. So that was the number one thing that they were talking about. Number two was Cadence Gate. Saleh and Aaron Rodgers' little mini disagreement on how to fix the 5 false start penalties they suffered versus the Broncos last week. The head coach saying that they may need to adjust the cadence. Aaron Rodgers saying maybe we just need to hold the players accountable for the false starts. Saleh was quick to say this week there is no cadence issue and that him and Rodgers have a great relationship. And in fact, he loves the guy. So he's trying to squash that before it goes anywhere.
That sounds like Troy Aikman talking about Barry Switzer.
Right, exactly. Trust me, I love the guy. I love the guy. And then
but Troy Aikman, he was, we got it. Aikman, in fact, it was during the media window, the 20 minutes that the media could be out there and shoot practice. And there was one practice in particular I remember. It was a late season, and he was and it was well known. Troy was buddies with guys in the media, and his frustrations were well known in the media. But he purposely throws a football down in the middle of practice and make his point. And he knew it was open window for the media to shoot practice at that point, and got his point across. But anyway, I remembered back to 30 years ago when you brought up Aaron Rodgers saying, well, maybe the players need to be held accountable.
I do. I know where you're going with that, Bill Jones. Yeah, that's a good comparison there. The number 3 thing that was talked about, Garrett Wilson said in a radio interview, he's being asked to run a different route tree this season, and seemingly that could be part of the reason that his numbers are down to start this year. Number 4, oh yeah, by the way, Aaron Rodgers is on the injury report with a knee injury. He's expected to play. He's expected to be fine. But if you watch their last game against the Broncos, he was hobbling pretty significantly. And they said he has a swollen knee. And now he seems to be fine. No issue of him not to play. But that's something else to keep an eye on for a 40-year-old quarterback, a knee injury, not a good thing. So what was interesting was, again, those were a majority of the topics that were discussed on Wednesday. And you know what wasn't being talked about? Traveling overseas or actually playing the Minnesota Vikings. So one of the reasons I picked the Jets to win the Super Bowl this year, unlike last year, there wasn't a lot of noise this year. When I was there during camp, I think I was there for 4 or 5 days. It wasn't a lot of circus. It was just a lot of focus. I think they knew they were a good team, but that's really changed. There's just a lot of outside noise on topics that aren't really related to football right now, which has me worried. As for who wins this game, Bill Jones, believe it or not, I'm taking New York. And I think it's going to be an ugly, hard-fought game featuring two good defenses. I know there's a lot of turbulence right now, but I still like the Jets, who, with a win, would be back over 500. And if you look at that schedule going forward, it gets pretty easy going forward. So I still like the Jets. I'm riding with them this week, and I still think this is kind of the catapult game to having a good season there in New York.
Okay, let me ask you this. What were the travel plans for the Jets? So they were practicing there, and you covered it on Wednesday. When were they headed to London?
Yeah, they went to London on Thursday. They were going to practice in New York and then head to London on Thursday. And so it should just be like a quick Friday practice and then Saturday and then game time.
And that's what I was just looking up while you were talking to see what the Vikings are doing. And the Vikings traveled on Thursday too. They arrived 8 a.m. London time in London. So
yeah,
I think sometimes teams take a different look at that, and sometimes they go earlier in the week and go ahead and practice over there. But it looks like these two teams have taken the same approach. So
yeah, that's definitely the case. The Jets, I was actually wondering the same thing. I was wondering if they were going to leave Wednesday after practice, and I think they decided to leave Thursday after practice instead, which, like you said, kind of changes up. I know a lot of times you want to get there and get settled and kind of reacclimate your body to the
which reminds me, when the Cowboys played in London, this would have been 10 years ago now, probably. And I remember they planned to go on Wednesday, but Des Bryant was so late for the flight, they didn't leave it till Thursday.
Let's hold the players accountable. That would be a great thing there. That'd be a great thing
there. You go.
All right, Bill Jones, pressure's on. One of our favorite segments, probably my favorite. Who are you looking at this week?
All right, hey, here's my guy. I think you're going to love this one. Okay. And another one of the big matchups this week. And I was toying with taking this matchup, but Monday night, New Orleans plays at Kansas City. So who am I picking in this game that the pressure's on? What person involved in this game is the pressure most on? What do you think?
I say Xavier Worthy to fill the shoes of Rashee Rice.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. But I think he'll be up to that. You know who I selected? I selected New Orleans Saints offensive coordinator Klint Kubiak, who 2 weeks ago was on the fast track to get the next available head coaching job in the NFL. After the Saints, the first 2 games of the season, I don't think they punted. I think they scored on every possession they had in the Carolina and Dallas games. They beat Carolina 47-10. They beat Dallas 44-19. And I think they not only scored on every possession, they scored touchdowns on every possession, seemingly. All right. Since then, they play a mediocre Philadelphia team. And cannot get into the end zone, lose 15-12. And then they play at Atlanta and lose 26-24. And so now they're playing against a 4-0 Kansas City team with who arguably is the top defensive coordinator in the league, Steve Spagnuolo. And so Klint Kubiak, what do you got? All of a sudden, the bloom is off that rose, and now we see. So I'm intrigued by this coordinator matchup, Kubiak versus Spags, to see what Kubes has up his sleeve in this game. What do you think? I think the pressure's on Kubiak to show that he was not just a flash in the pan the first two games as a coordinator of the Saints.
Yeah, to me, it's pretty simple. The first 2 weeks, Panthers, Cowboys, they smoked two non-playoff teams. And then the next 2 weeks, the Eagles and Falcons, they struggled against two playoff teams. So, like, yeah, every team in the league would probably do something along the same lines. Funny story quickly. One of my really good friends is a Saints fan. He said after they smoked the Cowboys in week 2, he went to fanatics.com. He bought 8 Saints shirts because he was drinking the Kool-Aid. And after they lost to the Eagles in week 3, I actually took a screenshot of Fanatics refund 365 days to get your money back on the shirt. So I sent that to him. But they're 0-2 since then. So
let me tell you what I did with one of my fantasy football teams. I saw Derrick Carr was available after the first two games. So what did I do? Here's what I did.
Up and played him.
I picked him up and started him ahead of Jaden Daniels.
Oh. Oh, well, we know right there, Bill Jones 0-2 in fantasy football the last 2 weeks.
I've got 3 fantasy football teams. Okay, one a family one a neighborhood one, and one a Cowboys TV. Okay, all 3 of my teams are 1-3 right now.
Well, that's what happens when you start Derek Carr. Now, Alvin Kamara, if you would have started him, you still might have actually won over the last few weeks.
I should have started Taysom Hill at quarterback.
Yeah, that's actually true.
I would have done better, even though he was not playing.
I know. Yeah, I heard. All right. For the first time all season, Bill Jones, I'm not picking a quarterback for pressures on. Instead, I'm highlighting Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. This week, his job is to contain Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and the red-hot Ravens offense, a task easier said than done so far for opposing DCs. Baltimore owns the #1 offense in the league, almost 430 yards per game, on pace to set a franchise record. And when you ask what's working for the Ravens, you can pretty much say everything. Lamar's passer rating is over 100. Henry leads the NFL in rushing yards, and they've allowed the fewest sacks in the league. So basically, Todd Monken's offense is firing on all cylinders. Meanwhile, Cincinnati's defense hasn't been terrible yards-wise, but bottom 5 in points allowed. Their biggest issue has been a lack of pass rush, tied for second worst in sacks with 5 in 4 games. And one of the real reasons that I think kind of gets lost in the Bengals' success over the last few years has been that Cincinnati defense. The reason they went to the Super Bowl and AFC Championship game in back-to-back years was Anarumo's great defensive game plans, especially late in the season. So can he get that defense kind of back on track here in a really important game for the Bengals, who are 1-3? They cannot afford to lose. But again, Lamar and the Ravens, as you pointed out already, they look really good. After struggling the first 2 weeks, including the loss to the Raiders, now you're looking back at that like, how did that happen? The Ravens have kind of figured it out, and I can't wait to watch Baltimore and Cincinnati on Sunday.
And by the way, that's another noon game on CBS. CBS has games this week. Wow. Just in time for the Jonesing for Football podcast to be streaming here on CBS Texas. Wow.
Playing perfectly by you, Bill Jones. Well done.
That's right. And by the way, I'm just looking at the late game on CBS, 325, Giants at Seahawks. What are the other? Okay, there you go. Green Bay and the Rams is the other late game on CBS. Which brings us to who you got.
Who you got, Mr. Jones? The way we wrap up every podcast during the regular season, let's recap our picks last week. I asked you who would have more passing yards, Joe Burrow or Andy Dalton. Remember, it was a Red Rifle revenge game. You said Joey B, and you were correct. Barely, Barely. Yep, the fist pump. Yeah, you deserve it. 232 for Burrow, 220 for the Red Rifle. So you squeaked that one out for the win. Well done there.
That shows
All
it
right.
was a good question by you.
Yeah, it's pretty close. You asked me who would have more scrimmage yards, Jaden Daniels or Kyler Murray. And even though Jaden Daniels is my man crush, I went with Kyler Murray, but Jaden Daniels won easily. It was 280 to 145, so not even close. Another L for me. Amazing that Washington's defense, which was the worst in the league, shut down Kyler, allowed under 150 total yards. So no point. You lead the season series, Bill Jones, 2-1, but I get a chance to tie. I'm trying to tie it up this week. So week 5, here we go. I want to tee you up first, if you don't mind. We're a quarter of the way through the season. Can you guess the top receiving duo in the league according to receptions? So two teammates balling out. You have any guesses on who that would be?
I would say Jackson Smith and Jigba and DK Metcalf.
Very close. Yeah, you're very close on that. The answer is Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson of the Giants. They are number 1 in catches. A combined 61 grabs from those two guys. This week, their Giants play the tandem that you just mentioned, DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're actually number 3 in combined catches. So my question for you is, which pair of playmakers will have more receptions on Sunday? Neighbors and Robinson or DK Metcalf and JSN? And here's the one thing that I want to add. Right now, Neighbors.
No, we're not gonna have any caveats here.
No. I'm saying Neighbors right now in concussion protocol. If he doesn't play, I'll give you the point, Bill Jones. Okay. If he doesn't play, I'll just give it to you. But I am hoping he's going to play after having 10 days off.
I thought you were going to say if he doesn't play, you got another pair of receivers that I've got to research on the spur of the moment and come up with. Well, that's very fair of you.
I'm a very friendly guy, Bill Jones. So if Neighbors doesn't play or any of these guys don't play, I'll just give you the point. So that to repeat, your options, Neighbors and Robinson, Metcalf and JSN, which pair has more catches on Sunday?
That's easy. Or going with the Seattle pair. Well, it's not easy because if Seattle gets ahead and the Giants are, throwing the football after playing catch up, this is like fantasy football.
Okay. See? Right? Why do you think Neighbors and Robinson are leading the league? Because that exact thing has happened every week. The opposing team has gotten ahead, and then they're trying to catch up, throwing the ball to those two guys.
And you're talking catches.
Catches.
Okay. So reception. So this is, you're talking. This is a tougher one now, especially Seattle's run game is getting going and
steady dose of Ken Walker.
And I get the points if Neighbors doesn't play.
If any of the guys don't play at the beginning of the game, then yeah, I'll give you the point.
I'm going to cover myself on both sides. Coming and going. I was going to pick Seattle's tandem, but I think I'll go ahead and pick the Giants tandem, although I truly think that the Seahawks tandem will be better because I don't think Neighbors is going to play.
Okay.
But if Neighbors plays, yeah, because if you're cleared to play with a concussion, it's not like you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. If you're cleared to play, then he's going to play the whole game.
Yes.
So it's not like he can tweak his knee and
ankle. Yeah, high ankle sprain. Right, for sure. Right.
Okay, so I'm going with Giants if Neighbors plays, but I'm assuming that he's not going to play, so I'm going to get the points.
Okay, we will see.
All right, I've got one for you. As you know, one of my favorite players in the league is Christian Watson, the Packers wide receiver, who, speaking of injuries, suffered a high ankle sprain and That's once again, that's the only thing keeping him from being in the Pro Bowl every year is all the injuries that he encounters week after week
Uh-huh.
in this league.
Yep.
Right. But the Packers have a whole bunch of other targets for their quarterback, Jordan Love. And so who you got this week against the Rams on CBS 325 on Sunday? Who you got? Which Green Bay receiver, running back, tight end, you name it, has the most receptions in their game against, or no, I'm sorry. Let's go yards from scrimmage.
Yes, please.
Yards from scrimmage. Okay. So you're choosing between Josh Jacobs or Jaden Reed or Dontavian Wicks. Who am I missing there? Tucker Kraft at tight end. There's like 5 of them.
Yep.
That
Romeo Dobbs.
Romeo Dobbs is another one. It's amazing. And what got me looking at that is I'm looking at the Cowboys situation, and they've got CeeDee Lamb and a bunch of guys named Jalen.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you got the Packers. It doesn't matter that they lose one of their receivers to an ankle injury and he's going to miss a couple of weeks because they have all these other explosive guys in there. And they made a concerted effort a couple of years ago to draft multiple tight ends, multiple wide receivers, and it's paying off for them.
Yeah, and they hit on almost all of them, if not all of them. And this is one of the rare situations where you lose a number 1 or number 2 wide receiver like Christian Watson. Again, I would say more like 2 or 3, but you would say 1 or 2. Their game plan doesn't change at all. They're not going to do anything different without Christian Watson. So it is interesting that not many teams in the league have that kind of depth, but the Packers are definitely one of them. To answer your question, scrimmage yards, I'm going with Josh Jacobs because the Rams have given up the most rush yards in the league and the 5th most rushing yards per carry. So the Rams are allowing almost exactly 5 yards a carry. I think Jacobs has a big game, and, he might catch a pass or 2 out of the backfield as well. So while most people would probably take Jaden Reed because he's had multiple 100-yard games this season, I'm going to go the running back route. I think Green Bay is going to have the lead in this game. And so give me Josh Jacobs to have the most scrimmage yards out of all those Packers skill players.
Okay, so you're going with Jacobs.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
I like that.
Cool.
So I think you're going to win your who you got, and I'm going to win mine.
Are you going to win because of the actual results on the field, or
No,
Malik's not going to
because
play with the
I'm
concussion?
going to win by default because I don't think Neighbors is going to play.
10 days off. He suffered
Yeah,
the
that's true.
injury. That's why I actually included it. If it was a Sunday game, I would agree with you, but he has a little bit extra time to get right.
All right. Well, I think you knocked it out of the park. In fact, these are the famous words of another Bill that I'm going to present to you, young Cody. Good job.
Oh, thank you. Three good jobs in 1 week from the Bills.
No, it's even better. The way Bill said it to you was, "Good job, Cody."
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he said great job. I want to get the quote right. He said great job twice.
Whoa, great job.
So I must have done a better job on coach than I actually did on this show, because I only got a good job on this
Or
podcast.
this Bill has a higher standard than that Bill.
Exactly. Holding me to a higher standard.
We're holding you accountable is what we're doing. Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that.
All right. Okay. And I think a guy on an elliptical, and maybe he may be in Pittsburgh on an elliptical, listening and watching this podcast. Babe Loffenberg probably would say the same to you. Great job, young Cody.
Yeah, Babe said that to me once back in like 2014. So yeah, I always try to do a great job with you, with Bill Belichick, with Babe Loffenberg. Hopefully I did a good job. But yeah, we know Babe is listening to this as part of his pregame routine, getting ready for Cowboys and Steelers there on Sunday night. He's just working it on the elliptical. And so we always like to be along for the ride.
All right. That was fun, and we'll do it again next week. And thanks to one and all on CBS Texas and around the world, watching us and listening to us here on Jonesing
For football. Love you, babe.